So while the last people are sitting, let me tell you what we're going to do now. I'm going to do a little piece on big data, big choices, and that finishes off the session on choice. Then we're going to ask a representative of each of the white cubes to come up here that was running the white cubes. I'm told it was pretty successful. And we're going to see what we learned from that. There's another shot at doing that tomorrow. We're going to therefore have a bit of a Q&A up here. And then I'm going to remind you at the end of something I'm going to tell you now, which is that we need to be on our way to the boat by 6:15. And you need to have your badge. It's an hour. We'll have an hour to do this. It's fine. We leave from just underneath the hotel. There's an underpass, I think, that goes to the boat. You need your badge. It will make it a lot quicker to get on because, frankly, without it, you won't get on. And there are many partners that haven't got their badges because they haven't been here. They need to pick up their badges as well. Otherwise, you will be partnerless on the boat. And the boat actually leaves very sharp. It'll be a nice experience, but it's under strict rules to leave at a certain time over which we have no control. Okay? Not that we have much control over this conference either. Right? So I'll remind you of that at the end. Is that all clear? Is that okay? All right, now I'm going to talk about big data.
Pardon me? What time is the return proceeding?
What time is the, I don't know, Linda? It's about 3 hours, I'm told. Does that make sense? And that's the other point, sorry, I forgot. It's cold when you walk to the boat, but it's actually warm inside the boat. So it's going to be fine, okay? So 3 hours on the boat, it's warm. I'm sure the alcohol will make it even warmer. Who said that? I thought that's who it was. Okay. So I'm going to do something on big data, big choices. Oh, another question.
Hi.
What have I done now?
Just say that it will finish at 11. We'll be back on 11.
We'll be back at 11, apparently. I don't think that's 3 hours. I think we have a big data problem. Anyway, we'll be up by 11, so please make sure your badges, etc., etc., etc. I'll remind you at the end. Okay, so cool. So big data. And we're going to talk about that a little bit, but first I would like to show you a movie, and it's about a thing called Google Glass.
Okay, Glass, record a video.
This is it. We're on in 2 minutes.
Okay, Glass, hang out with the Flying Club.
Google photos of tiger heads.
You ready? You ready?
Right there. Okay, Glass, take a picture.
That is awesome.
Okay, Glass, record a video.
After this bridge, first exit.
Stay delicious and Thai.
Arroy.
Alroy.
Google jellyfish.
Well, let's see. It's beautiful.
If you haven't seen that before, that's the next gadget you will probably have. And I won't go into the detail. This isn't a commercial for Google. But it is to say that all the data that Google have, which is quite a lot, will end up being put through that glass, and you will either use it or you won't. It's your choice. They'll also come in prescription varieties, I'm told, which is probably good for me. So let me talk a little bit about big data and what's happening in the world of big data. Everybody knows the phrase, but not too many people know what it really is. So let me give a couple of definitions. First of all, look at data. Somebody calculated that to the year 2003, the human race in spoken word created about 5 exabytes of data, which is 1 billion gigabytes. That sounds like a lot, right? Roughly 100 million people created that in history over time. 100 billion, sorry. How long do you think it takes us to create 5 exabytes today? Any guesses? 2 weeks. Anybody else? A day. Well, because of everything we do, with our mobile devices, with all of our other devices, with the data that science is creating, indeed, it's a day. 1 day. We create the same amount of data as the human race did until 2003 in spoken word. But we create 2 kinds of data. We create structured data and we create unstructured data. I'll talk about that in a minute. This is the kind of information that gets put on the web in 60 seconds, just 60 seconds. Google receives 2 million search queries. There are 100,000 tweets. The really mind-boggling number, though, is that YouTube, at the top there, gets 48 hours worth of video in 60 seconds. Now, most of it's crap. I'm probably not supposed to use that word, I apologize, but it is. But some of it's useful. And all of it says something about the person that uploaded the video, which I'll come back to. So that's what we're doing, whether we like it or not. That's the data we are creating. A lady called Jane Snowball, who lived in Gateshead in 1984, started online shopping, not somebody on the west coast of America. It was in Gateshead, the UK. And it was an experiment by the council to help elderly people do shopping without having to go to the supermarket. And she bought product from Tesco, believe it or not. Now, a couple of $1 trillion worth, and probably that's an underestimate of what's happening online. People say there's a different channel for mobile. Well, actually it's going to be bigger than that, but a third at least, maybe half, is going to be mobile on your device. And frankly, what is mobile anyway? Is it your iPad? Is it what you get from the cloud? What is mobile? People talk about mobile channels. Marketeers talk about we've got to have a mobile strategy. Actually, you don't. You need a customer strategy because the customer doesn't care. The customer expects it to be now. And that's a theme you'll hear tomorrow in communication. I said there were 2 kinds of data, right? Now, I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and a fellow speaker was the CEO of Visa for Europe, Peter Aliff, and he said he had big data. And I told him he actually had tiny data, and he was upset for a minute. And then I told him why. Structured data is in a simple data set. So, for example, all the records of shopping at a supermarket. It's SKUs, it's time-stamped, it's who bought it. It's a lot of data, it's gigabytes, terabytes of it, but it's a fairly simple, structured data set. It's not hard, it just needs big machines to crunch it. But what's unstructured is what you do with the rest of your life. So when you put up photos on Facebook, how many people in the room are on Facebook? Okay. Chances are you put up photographs on Facebook, right? The chances are pretty high that it says something about your social relationships. It might even say something about your color choices. So let's suppose that you have a tendency to put up photographs which are blue and green, or you're wearing blue or green, and you never, ever wear pink or orange, right? Now, that is unstructured data. It isn't a big database as such, but if you scrape what's called scraping that data set, you can figure out that John Smith tends to wear blue or green shirts. Now, if you happen to sell shirts, it'd probably be better to send a coupon for blue or green shirts than a pink shirt, wouldn't you? But right now, unless you can connect that data together, you have no mechanism to connect the hard, structured data of purchases with personal and social preferences. And what Google Glass will start to do is connect those, but they'll connect it in your own eyesight. So a challenge for business is how do businesses connect tiny data, what I call tiny data, and these huge unstructured data sets. So the one academic thing I'll do, and we can make this available if you like, big data is really very complicated. It's got to be captured, processed, and stored. It's both structured and unstructured. If it's useful to business, it's got to create decisive action. If it's useful to an individual, it's got to create decisive action. Otherwise, it's just information. And in an organizational context, big data will change everything organizations do. There's no point one part of the organization understanding about blue shirts and Facebook and the other one going off and buying pink shirts. That just doesn't work. So those days have gone. So let's explore this a little bit. I was a brand assistant at Procter & Gamble in 1972, and I was taught that the customer was at the center of everything we did, except I used to push products at customers. I used to run advertising campaigns. I used to sell stuff in stores. We all grew up the same way. Market push. We try to understand to the best of our ability the customer, and then we would try to sell the customer something. We tried to do it the right way, but that was what we did. Well, when you buy something today, if you buy a camera, where do you start? Where do you start? You might Google it. You might actually look for a review from DPR Review, which is owned by Amazon. You might tweet and ask people. You might ask friends. You'll do a lot of things. In America, you might go to Best Buy, ask the blue shirt. And then, of course, when the blue shirt has explained the best camera for you, you will say, let me think about it, go home and buy it from Amazon. That's what's happening. We are searching. We are deciding our trajectories. We're accessing the information we want. So we're already using big data as individuals. In fact, we're using it better than business is using it today. That's what's happening in the world. The interesting thing is that it's my opinion that actually the only person that will truly understand and own the data is the customer. It used to be that the big companies owned all the data. They had the databases, even the governments. But are you really going to let your Visa records be attached to your Facebook profile? I don't think so. Are you going to let whoever you buy supermarket products from have the details of your restaurant preferences? You might even want to keep your color preferences from them. So where's it all going to come together? It'll come together on whatever device you happen to be using, your mobile device. How many apps have you got on your phone right now for loyalty programs, banks, flights, etc., etc., etc.? Dozens and dozens and dozens. So there's a whole battle going on right now to own the wallet on the mobile device. But at the end of the day, it's my belief that the customer will own that data, and the customer will extract a price. If you think of a loyalty program, which we all grew up with, people gave you the data in exchange for some kind of promotion. That was how a loyalty program worked. It was an exchange. Information from the customer, I get a deal. What are we going to ask for when all of this data about us is available? We can get it and businesses can't. The whole balance of power as data has shifted, and is shifting faster than we think. There are two basic strategies that I've seen to deal with this. One is network everything. Make sure you're bringing data from everywhere. P&G does this with its Connect and Develop programs. But do all the networking things that Chris talked about. That's a basically good strategy to manage all of these things going on in the world and make sense of big data. The other one, which is good news for Procter & Gamble and companies like it, is to be fantastically customer-focused. What does the customer actually want? Not what you want to push at them, but how they can choose something and pull it from you. How are we really going to deal with that? I think it's hugely exciting, and it's going to change the way that commerce works. I'll let you read that. I bet you didn't know that before, did you? Not that I understand what porn is on the internet, but the point behind it is that a lot of the systems of the internet secure payments, online video. Where'd they come from? The porn business, or so I'm told. Social media has taken over, and that's now driving all the technology of the internet. That's why Google Glass is putting social media into your eyeglasses. You saw how it connected to your friends. You could be at a conference and send pictures. There was a fantastic video on the YouTube a couple of weeks ago at Cannes. And some guy was trying to do interviews of people that were stars walking into the rooms. And he caught a lady that was wearing Google Glass, and he got so excited about Google Glass. Asked all these questions, and she was like, oh, just a minute. She got a Google Glass going, and she was transmitting pictures of her interview back. What the guy that was doing the interview didn't know was she was Sergey Brin's wife. That's the co-founder of Google. It was a wonderful advertisement for Google Glass. But that's where the technology is going. So if you're in a technology company, you better understand social media is now driving the internet. We don't read newspapers anymore, we all know that. We aggregate data ourselves. This is just one example. Zeit. I'm sure we use different examples, yeah? This is just us saying what we want to have in our news feed. It's really simple, not complicated at all. But it does make it really difficult for people trying to advertise through traditional media. And it means that we are again pulling, and they can't push. It's a really big concept. This is perhaps another step. This is a UK brand called ASOS. They sell clothes. They're also the world's most successful online clothing retailer. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't normally go into a clothing store knowing exactly what I want. Maybe you all do, but I certainly don't. I go as far as shoes. And then walk out with a jacket. What this does is allows people to create looks. So my look is I've got to go to a party at some fancy restaurant, and I need a look to go with it. I found the perfect look. I put all my stuff together, and I'll put that look online, which is what these are. It doesn't need to be ASOS clothes. It could be Chanel. It could be anything. And then people do a search, and they say, I need a look for a party in a fancy restaurant at the weekend. I need ideas. Let's go here. The bet from ASOS is you'll buy at least something from them. But if you don't, no matter. They've got you in their network of socially connected people. And that's the idea. And they're only just scratching the surface of this. That's creating data, and it's using data. And it's individual unstructured preferences again. But in their case, they connect it to a structured database called What You Buy. And they come up with some really interesting insights. Now, of course, there are issues about data privacy. We all worry about data privacy. And lots of governments are scrambling to put in the right laws, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there's some real concerns about this. And here's one. Your Facebook defaults in 2005. Now, the white on the left is what was hidden by default. In other words, the blue stuff was out there, no matter what, unless you change your Facebook profile. That's actually basically today. The only thing by default that's hidden on Facebook is your contact and your birthday. Everything else is up for grabs unless you change your privacy settings. So you could get scared about this. You could say they're invading your privacy. I would say we actually own all that data, so we better make sense of it for ourselves. We better take control. So actually the best possible way to manage privacy is if we all understand we're supposed to manage it. We have the data, we have the responsibility, we have the tools, and we force guys like this to make sure those tools are possible. Legislation won't stop it. It's an unstoppable train. It's out there. That's big data again. And here's the next variety of big data. Facebook have just announced, I'm using Facebook, it could be Google, but Facebook's a good example of this kind of thing. Facebook have just announced what they call Open Graph, which is a search mechanism. At the moment, if you try to search Facebook, you might come up with friends, or you might come up with countries. But if you typed in all people in Geneva that wear blue shirts on Saturday or Friday, right now you wouldn't get an answer. But you will. You'll get an answer to that question from Facebook through this mechanism. And they'll create what's called an API, which means you can connect it to your retail database if you have a shop in Geneva that sells clothes. Now think about that. Whether we like it or not, it's happening. The structured data, the tiny data, is getting connected to the unstructured data. That is truly big data. I think we will be the only people that will have that data as individuals. We have a responsibility to look after it, but also, frankly, we have an opportunity to extract money for it. There's an exchange to be had. What is our data worth? And that is the customer opportunity in big data. The business need is to try to figure out strategies to make sense of it and forget that you can own it. It's not your data in the first place. You can't own it. All you can do is borrow it for a bit and make sense of it. And with that, I'll close. Thank you very much. So we're going to shift gears. I don't know if anybody's got any questions on that. There may be a couple. But we really, unfortunately, don't have time for that. Happy to answer questions. Well, unless somebody wants to ask a question, go for it. Now's your chance. Anybody want a question? There's a question over there. We'll take a couple of questions. Yes, sir.
So which companies will win here with big data?
The customer. Without doubt, the customer. Customers that abuse that will lose. And I don't think there's any one solution. I mean, Apple makes great kit, Google makes great search, so on and so forth, you know? It's a big, big thing that's going on out there. It's very hard to predict who'll win. The only thing I will say, back to my Visa story, however much we hate banks, we trust them with our money. We let Visa have our data, we actually let banks have our data because we assume we can get it out of the ATM. So actually, whatever we say, the one entity that we actually currently trust is our financial institution. You don't want your government to have your Facebook information, right? You might just trust your bank if they got their act together. One more question, then we'll move on. Yeah.
My son's at university, and two of the corporations have just inquired when he's filled an application form in that they want access to his Twitter and his Facebook account.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how does that fit in with secrecy and whatever your laws?
Well, first of all, it's not my laws. I'm not sure they're legally entitled to demand that because they're supposed to accept him on the basis of his academic record. And if it was me... Oh, major corporations. I would say, I'm sorry, I don't want to work for that corporation. It's your choice. A corporation that demands that kind of thing, frankly, isn't really very ethical, and I don't think that's right, personally. That would be my point of view on that. It's not going to be easy because businesses will try to own this data. That's a fact. That's bound to happen. Capitalism, as Chris said, is a peacock. And I think we're still going to have those issues. But at the end of the day, I happen to believe that the big data that we all own will win. Okay, I'm afraid we are going to have to move on. We're going to change the subject slightly. I'm going to invite the three protagonists, collaborators, up here that we're running the white cubes. And we're going to spend 15 minutes figuring out what actually happened in those white cubes. And then if we've got any questions from the audience, we'll take them. And then we'll get a chance tomorrow to go to one that you didn't go to. Okay? So why don't we start? Richard, why don't you tell us in 2 minutes, please try to keep it to a couple of minutes.
2 minutes.
What you learnt in your white cube, what you were trying to do and what you learnt.
Okay, well, first of all, what a brilliant theme, a wonderful world. So we've set ourselves the task in the next 24 hours as a group of protagonists who actually, just a minute, on the protagonists themselves, the data says that they are upbeat, positive, optimistic revolutionaries. But the 20 minutes or 40 minutes we had with them suggest that they are absolutely the most optimistic and positive force for good. Can we hear from the protagonists, please? There we go. Thank you very much. So our task was to use the power of communications to help create in the next 24 hours a more wonderful world, the kind of world that we want our kids to inherit. And the reason we believe that's achievable is because the best communications actually is doing something. And those of you who've seen my slightly balder, more energetic boss, Kevin Roberts, and if you haven't, you'll see him tomorrow, will know that our framework for doing things is creating both love and respect. No respect, no love, Mark, but no emotional connection, you will not do anything. Because emotion leads to action, reason leads to conclusions. So what did we do in the 40 minutes and what did we learn? We learned that the protagonists are a bunch of doers. We learned that through some storytelling. And every single person in the room was encouraged to tell their story of what it took to get them to this place in this moment in time in a minute. And they did that not once, but twice. They did it a minute and then in 30 seconds. And what we got was an incredible rich insight about the kind of people who have worked for P&G. They are a bunch of people who travel the world. They've built dams. Since they left P&G, they've learnt nothing but taught lots, given lots. All of you have got married and had babies with other people from P&G, but that aside, you're a bunch of extraordinary doers. So you're great storytellers, that's fantastic. In addition to that, this group has held its hand up to embrace a framework called Do One Thing. So by tomorrow afternoon, everybody in that group, and I encourage all of you who are up for doing one thing to come join us, that will do one thing that makes them individually and with their families, their communities, happier, healthier, inspired by stories of other people who've done this really, really well. So that you will have a personal commitment to do one thing, and tomorrow we will then take collective action, drawing on the power of the P&G parentage. So that's what we've learnt so far.
Bolder than Kevin. Anne, would you like to give us your summary?
Sure. Yes. So we were leading the Connectors White Cube, and what we had was basically a room full of connectors, meaning there was a lot of discourse. There was probably maybe a little bit more chaos, but there was a lot of energy around people connecting about their shared experience at P&G. A couple of key themes came out, that Richard actually kind of alluded to, very diverse. From a variety of different nationalities, combined nationalities, different disciplines, very transnational as a group, which was fascinating and energizing and inspiring. And I think what we also learned was, what we also discussed was, in terms of our experience, what have people done since leaving P&G? The experience that you gain is so, I think, undervalued when you're actually at P&G, and when you leave, you really begin to realize the true power of the experience and expertise that you've gained. And the people in the Connectors group are putting that into action. There were so many entrepreneurs, consultants, people who have gotten into their passion areas, have all gravitated to their passion areas, whether it be in consulting or entrepreneurship, or be it social. A large number of folks were into nonprofit activities, and really going from success, as one of our members put it, to significance, and really focusing on how they can take the expertise that they have to add meaning. So we didn't quite get to the challenge that we have and what we'd like to tackle as much as we'd have liked for today, but we did set up what that is. What we wanted to do is demonstrate over the course of the next day or so the true power of disintegrated creativity. And if you think about creativity being everywhere and all of us having great ideas, we're going to put Tongle's global community of creatives, 50,000 people worldwide, up to the task of what is the thing that we think are the problems with the 21st century workplace. And at the same time, we're engaging the White Cube participants, the Connectors, and anybody else who wants to join tomorrow to identify what those problems are, and then to collaborate creatively in interactive sessions on how to solve those problems as well. So that's the task that we're up for.
Changing the world. That's terrific. That is terrific. Fred.
So we had the creators with us, and my God, were they creative. Thank you, creators, for your contribution. Before we go there, I had the great privilege last night of hearing Francie Pepper address the women's group. And I just noted down, this is a quote of a quote, so she corrected me on this, but she encouraged us all. She said, if you're going to take ownership of an issue, you have to do more than have a meeting. And I think it's fair to say we have more than a meeting with the creators. So with apologies, because I was just one of 6 of the Interbrand team, and so I'm skewing things a little bit to our group. I guess the first thing to say is that when you get 60 to 70 highly educated, highly motivated, and highly opinionated people in a room, starting a conversation is not difficult. So there wasn't much silence there. We were all prepared to stimulate, but stimulation wasn't needed. I guess the other thing that really started things off was just the acknowledgement. I think the acknowledgement of the potential power of the P&G Alumni Network. When you look at around the room, I've got the privilege to be able to see everyone across here, what potential there is, what we could be doing. And I'm using that word potential because I think there was also, one of the themes we quickly got onto was the actual alumni network itself. It could be doing better. It could be more functional as a network. And a lot of the discussion in my group is, what can we actually do to activate the P&G Alumni Network so that it is able to do all the good that we know it can do. And then we started talking about what that good could be. I mean, a lot of topics are still in discussion. We had a lot of conversation around building people, whether that's education, whether that's passing on our knowledge about how to build businesses, equipping people to be more self-starting in these straitened times. We talked a little bit more about the aging population in one of our groups and what that means. But I think one of the overriding questions that came up here was actually, what is the purpose, what is the manifesto, if you like, for the P&G Alumni Network itself? What should it be setting out to solve? Should it have a philanthropic agenda, or should it have a more functional agenda and allow the network to function and create its own outcomes, be they what they may? So lots of really interesting questions. Tomorrow, we too are going to be looking to actually make this more actionable. We've challenged our participants, and we welcome newbies to come to our group as well. We're actually going to make individual commitments to do one thing and put them down in writing. So even if you don't participate tomorrow morning, please do come to the Interbrand White Cube space in the afternoon, because the content that the people in the morning create will become part of our exhibit in the evening. You'll be able to see some of the outcomes and some of the commitments that we've made.
Fantastic. So thank you for that too. A challenge for the alumni committee, which fortunately has nothing to do with me. So if we've got time, I think that was really excellent summaries, and I think the way that we've got some action going forward is outstanding. And it sounds to me like this has been a brave experiment that's working. Yep. And to the way I would think about it, it's a combination of structured data. We analysed everybody and figured out which groups you were in. And we put you into an unstructured environment, some more structured than others, and we came out with some interesting results. So it was a brave big data experiment. So are there any questions for the panelists before we close? Anybody got any questions on this? No? No, I can't see any questions. I've got a question to you, and it's probably a bit unfair, but I'm going to ask it. For those of you at the at the cubes, success or failure? Failure, anybody? Failure, anybody?
One success. Come on, more than that.
Okay. Success?
Creators, where are you when we need you? Come
Success. On. Okay, cool. That's terrific. Thank you very much. So we're going to do this tomorrow. Everybody's got a chance to go after it again. It sounds like we're on a bit of a roll, right? We've got some challenges. Let's go.
Good.
I'm looking for 2 persons. I'm looking for
Jan Gaslan, and Jos Wuta. I need to see both of you, please.
Oh.
Wow.
No, there's no story. Just I want to see you.
I am both of those people.
You are obviously the naughty schoolboy. Okay, so that actually concludes the formal proceedings for today. Please remember, badges, you and partner, be there an hour from now, ready to go on the boat. There are hosts and hostesses going to show you where to go. Should be a lot of fun, and we should be back by 11. The boat leaves sharp, so please leave that. Yes, it's in the basement.
Well done.
Thank you very much.
Well, lovely.